This video will walk us through finding the SSE, the sum of squared errors. And we're going to use a TI-83 and 84 to do this. So here's the general outline. We want to input the data into L1 and L2. We're going to perform a lin-reg calculation, and we want to make sure that we put the equation of the line into the Y1 variable. We're going to create 3 new lists. We're going to create the list of the y hat values. In L3 and L4 we're going to find a difference. These are the actual errors. And in L5 we're going to square the errors. And so our list 5 will contain the squared errors, and we just need to add them up. And so for that we're going to go back to our home screen and then add them up using a calculator command. The data that we'll be using is this set of data, AC and GOC, and we're going to input these into our calculator. So let's get started with that. Get into our calculators and go to Stat and then Edit. And then I see that I have some stuff in my calculator, so let me clear that out because I don't need that data. So to clear out a list in your calculator, you want to go up arrow until the L1 is highlighted, or whatever list you're going to clear. Hit clear and then enter. And we'll do the same for L2. Let's go back to L1, and then now we're going to start filling in this data. Once that's filled up, let's go ahead and go to L2 and then fill the L2 list. Alright, this seems to have been inputted. I'm just going to go scroll up to make sure that I have all my values correct. And really it's hard to check this, but I think it's just a good quick way to have a quick check to make sure all the values are inputted and there aren't any blank spaces or anything like that. Oh, by the way, another important thing to look out for is to make sure that you have the same amount of numbers in your lists. That's a quick way to check to make sure that you've inputted it correctly. Okay, once we are satisfied with our list and everything is all set, we can do a lin-reg calculation and put our variable into Y1. So let's do that. To do that, it's always good to get out of your list or wherever you are just to make sure that you don't append to it. Now, doing the calculation here won't really affect this list, but we should still go back to our home screen. And so to get back to the home screen, you press the second function button and mode. That actually says quit in the second function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand and show you what's inside of my calculator. Inside of my calculator, I have a list of y functions. I have my list that I've already put in, and I have my graph over here, which I'm not graphing yet. Or we don't need to graph this, but I think it would be good to take a look at the graph a little bit later on. So our next step is to run a lin-reg calculation. So to do that, we're going to Stat, Calc, so right arrow to Calc, and the lin-reg command that I want is in number 8 slot. So instead of scrolling down, I'm just going to press 8. And then now you can have a screen that looks like this, or your screen might have an X list and a Y list and a couple of other options to fill in. The default is that the X list and the Y list are L1 and L2. So if it doesn't say L1 and L2, you want to make sure you put L1 for the X list. And on this particular screen, I need to put commas in between my arguments. So L1 and L2 are my X list and my Y list. The third line, if you have a different screen than I have, the third line will say something like the frequency, and we're going to leave that blank. And then the last line says store reg EQ, and that's this option here for this screen as well. And for that, we want to make sure, this is the make sure you include the Y1 variable. So we're going to put the Y1 variable here. So to get the Y1, I'm going to press vars, select Y vars, and then I'll hit enter a couple times. So now I have Y1 here, or if you have a different screen, you should have Y1 where it says store reg EQ. Now this is important for a few reasons. One, we're going to build our list using the Y1. Now the Y1 I have here is not the Y1 that I need, so we'll see when I press enter that this will change. And then the graph will still leave alone. Okay, let's press enter. So we see my output here is A is equal to 5.175 and B is equal to 0.09699. So I see my Y1 equation over here change from what it was before to those exact numbers, and then except it's in the form of A plus BX, and there's the X at the end over here. So that is all set. If I wanted to see a graph, I can see a graph of the scatter plot and the line by going to zoom, and then I'm going to hit number 9 for zoom stat. And here's my graph, and I can see that I have a very strong correlation. In fact, if I go back and look at my home screen, the correlation is 0.9897. So that is a strong correlation. Okay, so now we're going to continue to work on our list, L3, L4, and L5. So let's minimize this a little bit, and let's go back to our list. Let's hit stat and edit. So this is the list how we left it. We're going to go to L3. So right arrow, and I have to go up to L3. So I'm going to move up to where it says L3, and down here it says L3 equals without any parentheses. And I just want to show you the difference. If I were down here putting values into the list, I'll have L3 and then parentheses and then whatever place number I am. But I don't want that. I want to go all the way up to L3, and I'm going to fill in this whole list with the Y hat values. So once you've got the Y1 inputted into your Y equals functions, I will click on vars, select Y vars, and hit enter a couple of times till I get Y1 here. Open my parentheses and then insert my X values, and my X values are in L1. So I'll hit enter, and that would automatically fill this in with the values of my regression line. So that means if I put 62 into my regression line, I'm going to get 11.189. If I put 166 into my X value, my regression line, I'm going to get 21.277. Alright, so that is my L3. Let's right arrow to L4. Now, since I'm going to fill in this whole list automatically, I don't need to clear it. I can if I want to, but I don't need to clear it because it'll overwrite everything in here. But if you're inputting data and the number of numbers that you're inputting is less than what's already there, then you do need to clear your list. So I don't need to clear it, but I'm just going to clear it just to make sure that everything's gone. All right, and then I look at here, it says L4 parentheses. I want to go back all the way up to the top where it says L4 equals. And then my next step is to calculate the error values, which is the y values minus the y hat values. So that's L2 minus L3. L2 minus L3. So these are errors. If you just quickly scroll down a few of them, you'll see some of them are positive, some of them are negative, which is what we would expect. And we're not going to do it, but if you were to add up all these numbers in L4, you should get 0. Alright, our task is to go to L5 and find the squares of those values that we just found. So again, all the way to the top, L5, no parentheses, and then I'm going to go ahead and run this L4 squared. So second function, L4, my caret, and then 2. So that raises everything in L4 to the second power, and I press enter, and then this will automatically get filled in. So these are the values that I want to add up. Now that I have that figured out, I want to go back to my home screen. Remember to go back to the home screen, second function, and quit. That gives me my home screen. I can clear this, or I can just, let me just go ahead and clear it. And then I'll clear this list too, and I want to go and add up all my numbers. So second function and stat, and then I'm going to go to math, and then the fifth one down is the sum, and then the thing I want to add up is L5, so I'm going to select second function and the number 5, so that gives me L5 in my home screen. Close the parentheses and press enter, and here is a sum of squares, so it's 27.826. Okay. Alright, so I hope that helps with your calculations, and the summary is here. You can write this down, you can pause and write this down, and then follow through all the steps that we took. Okay, good luck.